Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com. While you're visiting catherinecarrigan.com, sign up for my newsletter to learn more about how you can heal your body naturally. Now, today, my guest is Reed Davis. He is the founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. Now, Reed is the coach of coaches. So if you go to a wellness coach, more than likely, they may have been trained by Reed Davis. Reed Davis has trained over 2,500 practitioners in over 50 countries to help you identify the underlying causes of dis-ease. Welcome, Reed Davis.
Well, thanks very much, Catherine, for having me on your program. I'm happy to be here and help any way I can.
And you can find out more about Reed and at his website, functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com. Now, Reed, what caused you to go into natural healing?
Great question. 20 years ago, I was in the environmental law field, saving the birds and bees and planet, the trees and everything. And I started realizing that it was affecting people too, obviously, and I wanted to know more about that. So I turned my attention completely towards what is happening to humans in this environment with all the different foods and what's in the air and the water and in our chemicals around us and things. So I started doing that. I started working in a clinic, and I was very, very fortunate there to have the opportunity to work with people one-on-one and also get specialized training. I got my nutrition certificate and personal training, and so I just really fell in love with the clinical side of things. That means working with people one-on-one. And what I got famous for, if you will, it took 10 years, but what I'm known for is having run more functional laboratory work than anyone else. I've run thousands and thousands of labs on thousands of people, mostly women at first, but then I started getting their husbands and their kids. So, we've run more labs than just about anybody or any 2 or 3 or 5 practitioners combined. And so that's, again, kind of my claim to fame. And once I came up with the system, about 10 years ago, I started teaching others, and because I knew that I wasn't the right person for everyone to work with, but I had a system that would help them. So now we're engaging, kind of deputizing health coaches around the world to do this work, to help their clients to get better using functional lab work and all natural protocols.
Now, even though I'm a medical intuitive healer, I myself am also a big fan of lab work. So people call me, or I'll work with them on Skype or Zoom from all over the world, and I'll help basically zoom in on what is actually going on with them. I'm reading their physical, energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies, but I'm a big fan of the lab work. And if I had only 2 lab tests that I would recommend that people do, I would have everybody test their adrenal glands to find out just exactly scientifically how exhausted are you. And secondly, I'm a big fan of the digestive test because digestion is so complicated. Parasites, bad bacteria, candida, I don't have to tell you. But Reed Davis, you're the expert and you've come up with this great system. What are the top 3 or 4 lab tests that you would recommend for people?
Yeah, great question. The thing to first realize is there is no one test. And so I think that the modern medical community is too reliant upon a simple blood test. We call it a CBC and Chem panel. And so there just isn't enough information there functionally about what's really wrong or what are the healing opportunities. They're looking for things that are so out of range that you need medication to fix it, that kind of a thing, like whether it's your cholesterol or whatever it might be. So we don't look at the body that way. We run saliva testing and urine testing, some blood work, of course, but also stool testing. We're looking for healing opportunities. In other words, what's broken, what's really wrong. what needs improvement functionally. So it could be the hormones are out of balance. You mentioned the adrenals. Well, they're very important, but as long as you're testing them, get all the other measurements too. So if you're going to do a saliva test for adrenal function, you can look at the circadian rhythm, you can look at the sex hormones, you can look at melatonin. You can get a lot out of saliva. So it's a huge test for us. It's a flagship test, looking at the not to get too fancy, but the whole hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis with all the sex hormones. Very easy to collect at home. It's not expensive, and it gives us, the practitioner who's looking for what needs improvement, a lot to go on. There's a lot of bang for the buck there. Now, the other thing you mentioned was digestion, which there are certain markers you can get from urine. So that makes it very, again, easy to do at home. You want this stuff to be easy. You want everybody to have access to it. So the saliva testing can be done at home. The urine testing can be done at home. Even stool can be collected at home. It's not as much fun as the other things, but sometimes you got to get it done so that we can see what's going on there. And by the way, it's stuff that it's never going to show up on that CBC Chem panel, the doctor's regular blood test. You know this, by the way. People have come to you and they said, well, my doctor, I feel lousy. I have this, tired, fatigue, whatever it might be, and I don't feel right and all that. But I go to my doctor and he says, my blood work looks normal. Well, that's very frustrating. And so we just don't do that blood work. That's already been done. We're going to run some saliva, some urine, some blood, and some stool testing and get the underlying dysfunctions, whether it be hormonal, immune system, digestion, like you mentioned, and detoxification, liver function and things like that. So there's opportunities there for healing. And then we're not going to just try to change the paper, we're like sell you something to make the paper look different or look better. We're going to say, here's what you need to do to fix it so that you have actually restored your health and not just treated the symptoms and not just treated the paper itself.
That's really, really important information that you're doing. Now, what is functional diagnostic nutrition, the system that you created?
That's a name that I came up with after years of actually doing it. I didn't really care about a name or what to call it or anything. I was just really just practicing my form of nutrition, but with a lot of investigation. And obviously, nutrition alone is not enough. So, but I had to call it something. It's functional, meaning we look at how things are really working in the body. We do study physiology and biochemistry and anatomy and things like this. So we know how things are supposed to be working. And then I use the word diagnostic, not like a medical diagnosis. We don't do any medical diagnosis. I'm not a physician, so I can't, but I also don't want to just label your cluster of symptoms and say, here, try this to get rid of the symptom. No, so we use diagnostic more as a term, like maybe a guy working on your computer, he would do diagnostics on the computer to find out what's wrong with it so he could fix it. Or a car, even car mechanics and those people, they use diagnostic tools to find out what needs to be fixed, what's not working right. So it's more from that type of diagnostic than it's not a medical diagnosis. So it's functional, how the body actually works. It's diagnostic in that we're looking for what's wrong or what needs fixing. And then nutrition just generally categorizes holistic health. And it actually, though, our behavior system, we call it the DRESS for health success, DRESS. So nutrition, diet's obviously very important, but so is the R stands for rest, which is good night's sleep. The E is obviously exercise, and then the SS. So you have DRESS, diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction. You've probably heard that word stress before. And then supplements. And I don't have my own brand or anything, but supplements are part of nutrition and supporting the body and nurturing things along, substituting for what's not in food anymore because food is such low quality. So diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplements, that's the protocol. And then we call it FDN. Everyone calls it FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. It's really the system of investigation into underlying causes.
Now, I know that you have put together a very generous discount for people who are listening to this program. Can you share with our audience about the discount that you're offering for your courses? Because many people go, gosh, I want to learn more about this. So,
yes. Well, if people go to that website and use, and they eventually get to where, you know, this is something they might want to get trained in. So if you're interested in our training, there's a discount that we set up for your listeners. I believe it's Carrigan 500, and if it's not, we'll change it. But you know, it's Carrigan 500, and that would save $500 off the price of the course. Now I have to say this about the course: it's already way underpriced. There's courses out there that are 2 or 3 times the price that don't deliver half the value or training. It's really a robust course. It's not a weekend course. It's 6 months of training where you're going to get basically everything I could teach you that took me 10 years to learn. You know, to creating the system and all the systems and backgrounds so that you can do this on yourself, you can do this on your family, or like a lot of my practitioners, they create a business and do it for a living.
So for those of you who want to take advantage of this very generous discount, my last name is Carrigan 500. So you can enter that. Now, what's the difference, Reed, between functional diagnostic nutrition and a traditional allopathic nutritional approach?
Wow, that's a great question too. So allopathy, or an allopathic approach, is for getting rid of the symptoms. And so it's especially popular these days to get people off drugs. That's probably a good thing if they don't really need them. And if they're just treating the symptoms and not really addressing the underlying cause. So then you might get them taking supplements or eating certain foods. That would be allopathic nutrition. You're getting them off drugs, but you're just really replacing it with some kind of supplement or food, and it's really just designed to get rid of the symptom. So that's not our approach. You know, we want you to be really healthy. So you need everything you're genetically required to get in terms of, again, diet, which is all the nutrition, and the rest, and the exercise, and the stress reduction, and the supplementation. So, you know, allopathy is treating symptoms. You might need a little intelligent allopathy to get you through for a few weeks so you start feeling better, so you're able to think straight and focus a little bit on a better diet, and, you know, get a better night's sleep, and exercise more and not feel real crappy after exercise and these kind of things. So a little allopathy is actually, we call it relief care, isn't horrible, but you don't stop there. You don't only do that. For instance, if you were having hot flashes and night sweats, you don't want that to take 6 months for your body to turn around. You want to get rid of that right away, then do all the work to make sure it doesn't come back, you know, and that your hormones return to normal balance and these kind of things. You get through that time period, you know, in a healthy way. So a little bit of relief care isn't a horrible thing, but you don't stop there. And we don't really think that way too much.
So if I was going to go to one of the 2,500 practitioners in 50 countries that you've trained, what are some of the common tests that you're going to test me for? So right off the bat.
Right off the bat, okay, hormones, immune system, digestion, and detoxification. With just a saliva test and a urine test, we get insights into the hormones. You mentioned the adrenals, but we'd also look at the balance between estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. We would even look at your melatonin. That's a hormone that helps you sleep, and it's a great antioxidant. It's mostly made in the gut, things like that. So hormones, the immune system, is it overactive or underactive? And for a lot of people, it's very much overactive, and they even get into autoimmune conditions because of it. So your body starts attacking itself. and you have all kinds of inflammation that can cause all kinds of, pain or foggy thinking or headaches, all kinds of things. So hormone, immune, and then digestion, because again, it's people are eating great diets. They come to us and they're already eating well, but they're really not breaking it down and absorbing it properly. Well, that could be bacteria in the gut that's missing. You actually need good bacteria to help you break down your proteins. And I can go on and on from there. Now, we also, by the way, as long as we're doing that urine test, we look at oxidative stress, excessive oxidation or peroxidation. It's not good for you. That's like you're aging before your time. You're getting older quicker. Your body's breaking down in not a good way. You've heard of free radical damage. That's part of the equation there with oxidation. You could also just think of an apple turning brown. You cut open an apple and it turns brown. Well, that's the cells breaking and the interior of the cells rotting. So that's but it's caused by oxygen. It's oxidative stress. So we can measure that on top of the liver function. Liver congestion is crucial. You don't want a congested liver. So if your liver's congested, you'll spill over some excessive bile acids into the bloodstream. They get picked up by the kidneys and excreted in urine. So we can measure liver stress. We can measure that oxidation. We can measure that inability to break down protein, for instance. And then back to the saliva testing for all the hormones. It's not just the adrenals. They're important, but you've got the sex hormones and melatonin and kind of measuring the circadian rhythm, your sleep cycle from morning till night. And so that's a lot of information about a person, a lot of healing opportunities. We could provide a tremendous amount of coaching around where you need to improve using that DRESS system, the diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction supplements. That treats everything simultaneously. So I'll just repeat, Catherine, that we don't diagnose or treat specific conditions like a physician would. If you went in for diarrhea or headaches or something, you would get that thing treated. We would just look at all of these markers, go, here's the things we need to do to work on every cell, on every tissue, on every organ, on every system, work on the entire organism simultaneously, and you just get healthier and your symptoms disappear. As long as there are no deal breakers extant, people have genetic, and there's people that have some severe true medical conditions. Well, guess what? That's why we have, the greatest doctors in the world, for those things. But, 8 out of 10 people coming to us don't have that. They have chronic stress-related conditions that are pretty much lifestyle-based.
Now, what does it mean to look for healing opportunities?
Well, I'm glad you picked that up. That's really what needs fixing and how you fix it. So, for instance, digestion, and we talked about a lot of things there, but if you're not breaking down and absorbing food properly, you're malnourished and you're not getting the amino acids, you're not getting all the carbohydrates, you're not getting all the good, clean fats that you need into the system where they need to be to do all the good that they do. So that's a healing opportunity. Maldigestion and malabsorption is a healing opportunity. There's something that could be fixed. Now, it's going to take some time, and you're going to have to get rid of anything that's interfering with health there, and that could be foods that you're sensitive to. That could be other things in the environment, toxins and what have you. It could even be parasites or bacteria or funguses or viruses and things that are helping you break down. So we can identify those healing opportunities as well. That's why I don't just run one lab, but we really have, if I had my choice, and as a practitioner, it is my choice, if people will run 5 basic labs, we can really identify a lot of healing opportunities.
Now, how do you use lab testing properly?
I think, that's probably a matter of opinion for some people, but for me, again, I have one purpose, is to find out how you're functioning, terms of the hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification. I'll add energy production and some things about the nervous system, parasympathetic versus sympathetic dominant, and these kind of things. So if you want to remember it, remember the acronym HIDDEN, HIDDEN. And a lot of these things are hidden from us. The hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system, HIDDEN. So if you ran all the 5 labs that I want, then I'd have some insights into healing opportunities there. And really what I'm giving you is what I discovered over a 10-year period of working in the clinic. I started out knowing very little, ran thousands of labs on thousands of people, and made some of my own observations. So these are things that you probably aren't going to find everyone doing, or if I haven't trained them. Again, this is my observations over a long period of time with thousands of people. If you heal those areas, like hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system, if you work on those areas and you simultaneously bring those functions all up, you get healthier and healthier. Pretty soon you've got all kinds of energy and clear thinking and a great immune system, and you're resistant to everything. And you should really feel great. There's no reason not to have your birthright, which is good health. We're born to be healthy. Our body want to be healthy. Every cell in your body knows what its job is, doesn't have to be taught what to do.
Reed, your approach is very similar to how I look at a person. So if I'm doing a medical intuitive reading, quick and dirty, one of the things that I'm looking at is somebody's overall chi level. So, and the way I like to liken it is money in the bank. So you can build health in the bank by working on these hidden areas like Reed Davis is talking about. And as you build your health in each of these areas, just like if you build your wealth, over time, you're going to stay healthier, you're going to avoid chronic degenerative diseases. Now,
yeah, we have a similar expression, it's really what's in the tank. You mentioned the bank, and we call it the tank. So what do you got left in the tank? And so, if you're still breathing, you've got something in the tank. Now, but some people have less vitality than others, and you hate to attribute it to age. Now, you can look at me. I'm not a real young guy, but I'm very, very young in spirit and in heart and physically in great shape because, I don't look at age as just automatically accepting deterioration, or I still have a lot left in the tank, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the bank tank, same thing.
Yeah, and there's definitely a difference between a person's chronological age and, as you know, their biological age. I mean, a 30-year-old could have the physiology of an 80-year-old, or vice versa.
Yeah, and the trick today is to be 80 with the body of a 40-year-old, because you're never going to be 22 again. Forget about that. Matter of fact, who wants to be 22 again? Not me. But I'll take 42 until I'm 82. That would be wonderful. And I'm kind of right in the middle there at 64 years old, feeling as good as I have really ever in 20 years,
Yeah.
So wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm 58, so I can second that. Can you give us an example of how you use functional diagnostic nutrition to treat an issue?
Yeah, we don't like the word treat too much. So what we might say, if we're going to use it, is self-treat. Because I'm not a physician, so I can't treat anything specifically. That'd be practicing medicine without a license. I won't do that. So again, if we identify healing opportunities and give people things to do to improve function, you improve the function, you balance the hormones, you get the immune system either quieted down or perked up if it needs to be. Some people are so suppressed that they're not protected, and they get sick all the time, things like that. So hormone, immune, digestion, those are where we would say a person might self-treat with what we do is coach up function. Treatment for us is coaching up the function, getting those things to work better. while we coach down contributors to what I call metabolic chaos. So there's just ways the body breaks down. It's infinitely complex. And so it's an individual who has weak links in metabolism. They have these vital voids, we call them, in metabolism, and just, things that aren't up to par. And, and we have, so those individual limitations, and we have the environment, also kind of working against us. And then we have activities that we can be doing. And I've categorized those very easily into 5 areas: diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplements. So that's our treatment, but it doesn't treat anything specifically. It treats everything non-specifically. Now you can write that down too, because you picked up on healing opportunities. That is a real good phrase. That's what you're looking for. And then the idea of treating nothing specifically, everything non-specifically. So every cell, tissue, organ, and system within the body, the entire organism is treated, if you will, but it's a form of self-treatment because each person's got to do it on their own. We're there to coach them up, that will do the investigation, create the dress program, customized for each individual, but someone's got to run the program, and that's the human involved, the person.
So let's go back to, you were talking about metabolism. So
Yep.
that's going to perk up the ears of many of our audience. And when I use the word metabolism, the way I like to explain it quick and dirty is the sum total of the breaking down and building up processes in your body. And because you're a day older today than you were yesterday, you're always breaking down. It's really just a question of you building up. How would you, for our audience, explain metabolism? Because for most people that has to do with their weight and their thyroid. How would you explain it?
You actually did very well. It is, in a sense, the breaking down and building up of the body. So there are metabolic processes, and they're, again, infinitely complex. There's no lab that's going to tell you every ongoing metabolic process, but we do break down and absorb nutrients, for instance, and it just gets so ridiculously complex that any discussion of it, you just have to realize you got to make it easy. So now you also have, you mentioned the hormones and the thyroid and things. That probably is where people think of metabolism, which is the speed at which you're doing all those processes, So again, it gets really complex, and it's hard to simplify, but people think of the thyroid being the hormone that regulates metabolism, and it does. So it goes to every cell in your body has a thyroid hormone receptor for T3, and that has an effect on every cell in your body. So it has to do with how cells work, and I don't think this is the exact place for that, but it can kind of speed up or slow down. And those receptor sites, by the way, can be filled up with other things, or they can become insensitive to the thyroid, so metabolism can slow down, which case you would probably, gain some weight and feel a little bit tired, and all the symptoms that go along with low thyroid, or what they call hypothyroid. But we just would look at it differently and go, the thyroid slows down for a reason. It's actually kind of it's a metabolic process that slows down when you're under stress. Your body doesn't want to burn up all its reserves when you're under stress. So it kind of adapts by slowing down the thyroid. It creates unpleasant and unwanted effects, but it's actually trying to do you a favor. Your body's just responding and adapting to stress when your metabolism slows down. So I kind of went about that a little in a convoluted way, because it's hard to describe metabolism other than what, as simple as you put it, the breaking down and building up of the body in all of its infinite processes.
Now, as you know, there are many so-called experts out there who talk about how, hey, I've got the best diet. And there's a lot of differing opinions about what is the best diet. But I share the opinion that I think that you do, is that nutrition is highly individual. And so how can you tell if somebody's diet or eating plan is actually working for them?
Well, there are overt, signs. I mean, when people are overweight, obviously their diet's not right for them. But almost any problem can be attributed, at least in part, to not eating the exact right nutrition. Getting what's genetically required. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. I happen to use a typing system to figure out what's the right diet for people, or at least a good starting point. It's called Metabolic Typing. And so I follow the work of William Wolcott, who is the world's leading authority on metabolic typing. So what does that mean, metabolic typing? Well, it's categorizing you based on the thousands and thousands of years of adaptation that your particular metabolic type has gone through. And so there is a right diet for you, but it might not be the exact right diet for me. It could be close, if you're, so the way I look at it is, you've heard of Paleo Diet and ancestral dieting. I think that's generally the way to go, but you have to ask which of the paleo diets, because if you go back 500 generations, which is a long time ago, 500 generations, that probably is close to your genetically required metabolic type diet. That would be based on the food that was available, the climate, the environment, things like that. So you're perfectly designed to eat those foods that were out of the soil and eat the animals that were eating those foods out of the soil, and all this kind of things. So there's a genetically appropriate diet for you. We would call it a metabolic typing diet. And it isn't just the foods, which foods. It's also very, very much tied to how much protein, fat, and carbs is perfect for you. Matter of fact, you heard me mention energy production as one of the main pillars of health, and that comes from eating the right amount of protein, fat, and carbs, and the right ones for your metabolism, for your genetic makeup. So it'd be different for someone who's 500 generations are all off the island of Borneo versus 500 generations of all off the island of Ireland or Wales, or something like that. So Wales is not an island, I know that. But anyway, so you get what I'm saying, right? You're genetically, you have requirements based on thousands of years of adaptation, and finding the one closest to you, that would be what you want to do. Now, how do you know if it's the right diet? If it's the wrong diet, it's pretty obvious. You're unhealthy, and that diet is contributing to your poor health. But if it's the right diet, you should have a lot of energy. You should feel fully satisfied when you eat a meal, and you should be in a pretty good mood. And if you look at things that way, that your mood is elevated, a sense of well-being, you might call it, that's a clue that you're eating right. But you also would have to have really good, solid energy, enough to do some work or play or whatever it might be, but move your body around, and again, good energy. And then also the idea of satisfaction. So it's called satiety. And you wouldn't be craving things. You wouldn't be always hungry. You wouldn't. So I can give you plenty of examples of how that works.
Now, what are the trends that you're seeing with people's inability to lose weight and also improve their health?
Well, they are not following the right diet. They're probably not getting a good night's sleep. They're probably not exercising. They're probably got a lot of different types of stress that they might not be handling perfectly, or they might not even know about. Again, the hidden stressors are huge. And then, I believe in supplementation. Just because the quality of food is not what it was 500 generations ago. You know, the way that food is produced today is pretty much geared towards profits and not necessarily high quality. You know, so I believe you can do both. I you know, try to eat organic and all that stuff, clean, you know, pesticide-free food and things like that. But again, so that's why supplements important. But the diet, the rest, the exercise, the stress reduction are huge. That's why people are out of shape, whether it's you know, that they're overweight or just tired and fatigued. They have sinuses, allergies, moodiness, irritability, chronic digestive problems, you know, and you name it. Just name a problem. It's going to be related to chronic degenerative diseases today, not infectious diseases. Not that Ebola doesn't exist, it does. People still get malaria or the flu and die from it, but what's really breaking us down and killing us slowly is the chronic stress-related lifestyle-based conditions.
Now, if a person was going to come to you, somebody in our audience, and they said, okay, Reed, I really want to be as healthy as possible naturally without drugs. What are some of the lifestyle recommendations that you would make for that person to be as healthy as possible?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I kind of been going over the Dress for Health Success, we call it. It's a program that's so successful, we were able to trademark it, you know, like DRESS. There isn't much that doesn't fall into one of those categories. Matter of fact, anything that isn't, so I put up my hand here, DRESS, anything that isn't diet, rest, exercise, or supplements falls under stress reduction. Like, name something that doesn't fall into one of those 5 categories, and I'll send you $1 because I can't think of anything. You know, like name, you know, it's like you hate your neighbors, you're a hater. Well, that's a form of stress. People have existential angst. They have no purpose in their life. They get up and they don't know what they're 50 and they still don't know what they want to be when they grow up. You know, so not having a purpose to me is a form of stress. And so, you know, I could just go through those 5 things with you ad infinitum, you know, and everything is going to be related to those. That's, again, one of those sort of discoveries that I made in 10 years of running the clinic, working on thousands of people. Because, again, I could not get out a prescription pad. I could not. There's no way for me to write a prescription to try to get the paper to change, you know, or anything. So I had to, you know, discover the principles involved in health, and they're all going to come out of the benefits you want, the high function that you want on a cellular level. Again, you don't have to, the beauty is you don't have to train your cells what their job is, but they do need to be well nourished, and they need to eliminate stress. They also need to be well rested, and so on and so on, and exercised and detoxified and these things. So the body has an innate intelligence, and that is the best thing we have going for us.
Yeah.
So the other things, you just categorize them the way I just told you.
Yeah, so I agree with you. When we work on improving our diet, our rest, our exercise, our stress reduction, and our supplements, just working in any of those areas, you're going to, again, build your wealth, build your health, build your tank, and move the needle towards greater vitality. And I always, one of the questions I like to ask my guests is, what are some of the main pillars of your personal health program? How do you stay really healthy?
You know, it starts with a point of view, I think. You know, I've, you know, see the world as a cup half full, and my cup runneth over. You know, like, I'm so fortunate and blessed. I mean, you could say, well, you know, you do the work, Reed, and yeah, that's true, but I'm just thankful. I'm just a thankful person. You know, I feel really lucky, and you know, I was just sort of raised to be that way. You know, hardworking parents. My mom's still living at 87, doing great and things. So I've got good genes and that. And then I care, I pray, I start with that kind of stuff. Really, point of view is everything. How you look at the world, and if you can find time every day to be grateful, then you're going to be taking a big step in the right direction. After that, it's um, things I learned as a Boy Scout, just about being cheerful and being helpful, walking little old ladies across the street, doing good deeds and being prepared. They say Boy Scouts motto is be prepared. I learned almost everything. Well, a lot of what I teach about attitude, really by the time I was 8 years old, so I just go back to what, I was a happy kid, and then this is what you shine on, to other people. Be cheerful and be prepared. Be prepared, so that it's a nasty world out there. The environment's just getting worse and worse. So, that's where this sort of science and analytical point of view comes in too. So, you have work to do. You get up every day and do your work and be happy about it. Be productive.
Now, I want to come back full circle to where you started, because you started by wanting to improve the environment. And here at the Natural Healing Show, we believe that as we take better care of our bodies, that has a direct positive correlation to taking care of the earth. For example, my garden is all organic. I don't use toxic chemicals in my garden. So I'm not spraying my garden with glyphosate, for example, and that helps the birds, the bees, and me. So how do you see, final thoughts, how do you see the correlation between taking care of our physical health and taking care of the planet?
Wow, that's a really good question. My final thoughts on that are that it does start from within. I have the exact same situation as you. I have a beautiful home. I have some acreage. Looking out my window here, I can look at a lake, so I've got this beautiful thing. And I hired a landscaper, and he did some work around the front of the house. And then he said, hey, if you see any weeds pop up over here, just use some Roundup. And I had to tell, no, man, I'm not going to put that stuff in my environment. So it starts with, getting up in the day and taking care of myself, which means I'm not going to put anything in my environment. And that, like Roundup or any of these things. And then, you start from there just branching out and encouraging good behavior and discouraging bad, harmful behavior to the best of your ability, and educate people. Some of the great nutritionists that came before me just said I think one guy, his last words were, you just teach. Like, what's the secret? You just teach, you teach, you teach. I think it was Weston Price said that, but it was one of those guys, Weston Price or Melvin Page or one of these great people who just wanted to do some good in the world and found that teaching is the way to do it.
Absolutely. And it's my belief that as we develop our own spiritual chi, it's not just for ourselves. We really do need to share it. And whether it's writing books like I do, or teaching like I do, or sharing radio shows like we're doing right now. So any final thoughts, Reed Davis, for our audience?
Well, you mentioned sharing, and I would say this: you can't share it if you don't wear it. Now, I actually borrowed that from Paul Chek, who's CHEK. Paul Chek is another guy who's just out there doing a lot of good in the world, teaching people about exercise and diet and things. And he says you can't share it if you don't wear it. So you got to get up and do it on yourself first, because no one's going to follow you if you don't set a good example. So it's another thing I learned as a kid. Those are the bad kids. You don't follow them, and you follow the leaders over here that are happy and doing good things. So providing leadership is very, very important. I would just leave you with that. You can't share it if you don't wear it, And so try to set an example.
Great thoughts. You've been listening to Reed Davis. You can find out more about his wonderful work at functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com. While you're there, if you would like to sign up for his courses, you can get $500 off by using the coupon Carrigan 500. That's CARRIGAN 500. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. While you're visiting my website, catherinecarrigan.com, sign up for my newsletter to find out more about how you can heal your body naturally. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.